Welcome back to a brand new episode of Blades of Beskar. I am your host, Jeremy Bloor, and today I wanted to talk to you about the two main characters in my two favourite franchises to ever exist. And first, I wanted to show you my good little friend, the cicada. Look at that, that's a little cicada shell. I'll give you a little bit of an intro. I am in Stringy Bark Reserve. This is a part of the Lane Cove National Forest. It is a small conglomeration of multiple different backyards of big properties that have allowed the national park to kind of create a guide through, and you walk on an immersive journey through Stringy Bark. I love this. This place has just captivated so much of my imagination. Like, if you see a lot of my intros at the start, you're going to see a lot of my my creek videos. It's actually filmed just down there. I've filmed a bunch of different things here. I love the Stringy Bark Reserve. If you're in Australia, I wouldn't recommend seeing it because it is so small. This is something that the people who live locally, if you live in Lane Cove, like I do, don't come stalk me. You'll see me at the shops all the time. But if you live around here, this is it's a must visit. I love this place with a passion. So yeah, today I wanted to talk to you about the Chosen One trope. Now, the idea of the Chosen One is kind of mixed in throughout multiple different franchises, but I think Lord of the Rings and Star Wars does it best. Now, a lot of people might say, well, Frodo might not be the Chosen One, but that's the one thing that I wanted to explore in this. Is he the Chosen One, or is he in the position of the main character as a result of other people's actions? So I'm kind of joined as well today by some brush turkeys, Australian brush turkeys. We'll see if they follow. We'll see if they follow along. Oh, fuck. Fuck. I just got bitten by a horsefly. It's not fun. I don't like horseflies. Okay, so I've basically split this off into 5 different categories. The first one being prophecy and destiny. So the idea of Anakin Skywalker is prophecy. It's prophecy incarnate. The idea of Anakin Skywalker is nothing without the prophesized version of the Chosen One, which was the main reason why Qui-Gon allowed Anakin to be a part of the Jedi Order, or tried to force him into the Jedi Order, and Yoda invited him in, I should say. So the idea of Anakin is kind of begs the question, was Anakin's destiny inevitable, or was he a product of manipulation by both the Jedi and the Sith? Now, prophecy is kind of funny in itself. You can fit multiple people in multiple different franchises could fit the same idea of the Chosen One. But in the end, it kind of works out to be the right person at the right time. He did fulfill the prophecy of the Chosen One, but was it necessarily the result of his own actions? Now, I don't necessarily think so. I think Anakin Skywalker is the Chosen One. Don't get me wrong. I think he is the most important character in the Skywalker saga. But I think that he is a result of manipulation by the Sith and the Jedi. If it wasn't for the Jedi creating their strict code of conduct with their strict relations of no people having sexy poo-poo stinky times with people, especially Naboo senators. No, I'm not talking about Palpatine, even though I would ravage that man's soul. God, you would have to strip me off Exegol to tear me away from that asshole. Now, like Anakin's role with the Jedi, it was kind of just a force of nature. It was let's force him into war and make him do all of the hard things that, I mean, we just don't really have the guts to do. You see them forcing him into doing Jedi mind tricks. And actually, one really cool thing about the Clone Wars is if you're watching all of the episodes, now you don't have to watch all of them, there are specific ones. I can't remember exactly which ones off the top of my head, but there will be times where you see Anakin dive slightly or even just dip his toe into the dark side, and they will play the Imperial theme, or commonly known as Darth Vader's theme. I love that. I love that idea of of kind of leading to his inevitable doom. But it was caused by the Jedi's actions. Now, some people say Ahsoka was the reason, but that's just another idea of what I'm talking about. It's forcing him into a position because of the situation that he's in. Is he necessarily the chosen one? Now, Frodo Baggins, he is an idea of circumstance, right? Basically, Gandalf just decided to bestow a bunch of trust into him because of Bilbo's lineage. If he wasn't Bilbo's grandson, I think it's grandson. Again, this whole thing is like you're teaching me at the same time. If he wasn't a part of Bilbo's lineage, then he would not have been thought of to take apart the journey of sending the ring to Mordor, to the fires of Mount Doom. I don't know why I sounded like Palpatine then. That was kind of like ridiculous. But, you know, it's kind of the acceptance of responsibility. You know what I mean? Like, it's the idea of, well, okay, we've got one person who's going to fit the role. His grandfather has put a very, very high fucking regard into his bloodline. Like, he basically held onto the ring and he didn't really do anything too bad. He just kind of wanted to hold onto it and do stuff. And, you know, he's strong of heart, he's strong of will, he's a strong person. It just happened to be the circumstance of what he was in. Now, is that a product of his time in his life? No, I don't think so. I think that's a product of other people's responsibilities, and their failure to enact on those responsibilities. So I beg the question here. Is Frodo's journey an act of fate, or does his choice to bear the ring define him as the chosen one? So I don't actually think Frodo is the chosen one. I personally think the chosen one is Samwise Gamgee. Now, okay, you might say, well, why would Samwise Gamgee be the chosen one when obviously he didn't carry the fucking ring? Now, I don't mean that Samwise had to carry the ring to be the chosen one. I don't think that's necessarily what the chosen one does. I think the chosen one is the person who allows the possibility to destroy the ring. Without Samwise, Frodo never would have made it to that point. Now, obviously, he turns and it's not of his own will, and Gollum, he, you know, inevitably destroyed the ring. I mean, some could say Gollum was the chosen one, but I really don't think so. I'm not going to go down that path. That's kind of like, that's a separate topic. I personally think that Samwise is the chosen one to destroy the ring. When Frodo was unable to do it, when Frodo had no strength, no energy, Samwise, he knew it. He looked at him and he said, I may not be able to carry the ring, Master Frodo, but I can carry you. And he carried him to the steps of Mount Doom and into the chasm where he was able to eventually throw the ring. I mean, not willingly, but he was eventually able to throw the ring into the fires of Mount Doom. Kind of an interesting trope, right? So let's go to number 2, the burden of responsibility. So, Anakin's burden. I've written both of these out, so, I mean, I'm sorry if I'm just looking at this. The burden of responsibility. Anakin's burden. Anakin shoulders the weight of being the galaxy's savior while simultaneously wrestling with his own flaws, anger, fear, and attachment. The expectations placed upon him led him to the dark side. Frodo's burden. Frodo's burden is literal. The One Ring, a symbol of ultimate power and corruption. As the ring bearer, he must endure immense. Oh my god, I forgot to fucking finish it. As the ring bearer, he must endure immense pain. Unlike Anakin, Frodo's conflict is less about ambition and more about resilience and self-sacrifice. So I think it's kind of interesting with the burden of responsibility. I don't think Anakin / Darth Vader actually feels that burden of responsibility. I mean, Anakin necessarily, he didn't do anything at least until the end. The very end when Vader was there with, because technically he's not. Yeah, you can swap between the two, but let's just say Vader because he's in the outfit. So when Vader was there and he made the conscious decision, hey, I'm going to go out and I'm going to help my son. My son's dying from my master. The master that doesn't care about me. The master that will give me up and he just wants to corrupt my son. No, I'm not doing this. Yeah. Sure, that was responsibility coming in, but it wasn't responsibility to be the chosen one. I think this is where Frodo kind of takes that win. He takes that little edge on Anakin, because Frodo's burden was a choice of his own. Now, when everyone in the Fellowship of the Ring, when everyone was standing around going, let's destroy it, who's going to take it, rah, 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 rah. Frodo's like, fuck it, I'll take it. I'll fucking take it. I don't give a fuck. Fuck are you going to do? You know? You bitches can't even fucking handle this shit right now. I'll do it. Give a fuck. And that's actually a quote from the movie. Don't watch the movie, but that's a quote from it. That's quote. Actually watch it and pause it at that point and kind of like fast forward a little bit, because I've already said it, so you don't need to watch it again. Frodo's burden is a literal burden. His burden is that of the ring, the powers of the ring. He is burdened to immense physical, emotional, and fucking mental pain constantly at all times. Think about obviously, the wraiths when they into his arm, into his shoulder, and all that kind of stuff. Sure, that's the physical pain side of it, like the that he had to endure amongst the journey. But even the consistent mental and emotional torture that he had to go through, turning on his friends, being angry with everyone, not trusting anyone, seeing people's true intentions, being put into a realm of the shadow, the unknown. The trauma that was bestowed upon him was immense, and that burden of responsibility could never be quenched by anything similar to what Anakin was put through. Anakin really had a pretty fucking easy choice. Like, in a time when he was going to die, his son was going to die, he stood up and he goes, nah, fuck it, I'm just going to make sure my son doesn't die and I'll die. You know what I mean? It's like, that responsibility is not much. He doesn't need much more. He won't need much more. It's easy to say, yeah, I'm a big Anakin stan and his whole thing was so hard, but even the biggest Anakin stan, like Star Wars Nerd 00, love you, bro, even he could admit that Frodo dealt with so much more. Anakin / Darth Vader's pain and burden was all through him turning to the dark side and using it for his own power, for his own will. He enjoyed it. He enjoyed the dark side. He enjoyed the pain. He delved deep into that. He dipped his toe in and then went fucking face first into the pool. The dude's a menace, but, a great story, but nowhere near the kind of burden. So I thought that was kind of interesting to see. I don't think this is necessarily a tally system. I'm not going to look at this and go, oh, well, okay, he's tallied up here and he's going to win there and he's going to win. No, it's not that. Mr. Cicada Man, he fucking agrees with me. Mr. Cicada Man says, oh, it's Frodo. Sorry, he's not actually talking to the microphone. Let me just... Oh, yeah, Frodo, he did it. Yeah, he had such a hard time with that one. Oh, yeah. Hey, I'm talking in a New Zealand accent because I can. There's a fucking nail in this rock. That's kind of cool. Okay, let's go on to number 3 before I derail myself. Temptation and corruption. Anakin's temptation. Let's talk about some bullet points here. Basically, Anakin's temptation is he wanted to save Padme. Why? Because the fear of loss, and also he was fucking massively susceptible to manipulation. All right? Because, like, that whole time with saving Padme, he was just so easily manipulated to the point where he turned to the dark side within an instant. He watched this guy kill someone who he revered in such a high regard and then just did nothing. He goes, oh, no, fuck it. Yep, I bow to you. You know what I mean? Like, his initial temptation was to save Padme, but in the end it kind of came down to just a promise of power. He knew the power that he would get to be able to bring balance to the galaxy, like the Chosen One legacy, but he went about it in the wrong way. He went about it in a way that was very much evil's temptations. It was the devil's interpretation of God's plan. Which that's a pretty fucking deep. That's a pretty deep thing. But that promise of power was definitely the most important part of his journey in that temptation to corruption. Fully corrupt to the point of no return with Vader until his son was around. Which insane. So I wanted to talk about a key parallel with this one as well, just between the two. Anakin's descent is similar to that of Gollum, with his obsession with the ring and the power it gives him. Now, you've got to remember that the ring I mean, I was pairing all of these together, and when I plan it out, I kind of do a little bits of mind maps and so on, and I kind of saw the connection between Anakin and Gollum. Now, not necessarily that Anakin is a hairless, disgusting fucking runt of a human. No, like, Anakin and Gollum very much share the same problem with that corruption of power. It's the promise of everything and, and the acceptance of nothing. I hate to see how much Gollum was affected. Gollum was the perfect character. I feel so bad for him, but at the same time, I'm so fearful of him. I hate him. I hate him so much. That was Vader. That was Vader to a T. I feel so bad for him because he lost his wife. He lost everything. Everything he'd ever known. He lost it all. For what? The promise of saving his wife that his new master knew would never be able to happen. Never be able to happen. Kind of sad. Like, not even kind of, it's really sad. But I just thought that was such a cool parallel to kind of like put Gollum in with that. All the ring promised Gollum was unlimited power. Unlimited power. The ring promised Gollum this amazing power that he was going to kind of like look out and be like, yeah, I'm going to be strong. I'm going to be better. I'm going to be someone important. And then it just gave him nothing. It gave him absolutely nothing at all. So let's talk about Frodo's temptation. Obviously, his temptation was that of a physical temptation, not necessarily that mental, because the physical temptation, he gets a lot of his power when he puts on the ring. So the One Ring being that physical aspect of his temptation and corruption, because it basically it breeds fear, doubt, and exhaustion. But the whole point of Frodo and his corruption was the struggle against power. Very different to Anakin. I think you couldn't really compare the two in that case, like the struggle against power or the struggle for power. Anakin was very much for power. He needed it. He wanted it. He was so desperately craving that power to even with the most noble intentions, he craved the darkness. And Frodo's one was a struggle against it. He didn't want it. He didn't need it. He didn't want to go down that path. That was not a path that he wanted to see, that he wanted to venture towards. It's not something that he could ever imagine losing himself to. But it was just a constant wearing down. I mean, there's always a quote that I say to my friends, jokingly but also half serious. Like, water does not break rock through its strength, but with its persistence. So I see the ring as the water in this situation and Frodo as the rock. Frodo is struggling so much against this power of evil, but it constantly wears at him and at him and at him to the point of no return, where he cannot physically stand it anymore. Every barrier that he has been able to withhold for the whole journey is broken down at Mount Doom, and he is left as a shell of himself. Even Tolkien himself said, I don't see Frodo as a failure. I see Frodo as a regular person who is very susceptible to the power of the One Ring, like anybody would be. So I want to see the key difference between Frodo's temptation is one person. Samwise Gamgee's friendship and loyalty. That's the only thing that stopped him from that temptation. And obviously, like I talked about before, everyone would fall to the One Ring in the end. Everyone will fall. So I don't necessarily count. Well, I don't count Frodo as a failure for that. But I do see the whole time he would not be able to survive without Samwise Gamgee. Without his strength and persistence, Frodo would have been manipulated and torn to shreds by Gollum. I know. You see him as like, oh, he's such a nice guy. Gollum would never do that. He's so kind. Well, the dude wanted to fucking kill him every single time. Smeagol was a little different, obviously, inside of him. The voices inside of my head. Smeagol was a little bit different, but he's, in the end, overcome by Gollum. Gollum, the power-hungry man. And without Samwise Gamgee's friendship and loyalty, Frodo never would have allowed him, or never would have gotten anywhere near as far as what he did. Beyond the physicality of him being picked up, I mean, like mentally, never would have been able to get anywhere near as close. So let's talk about companionship versus isolation. So Anakin is the idea of isolation. compared to that of Frodo with companionship. So Anakin's isolation, what did it mean? He was severely lonely. Anakin the whole time, after the loss of Qui-Gon, yes, okay, he had Obi-Wan. And that's the most important part of who he was. His friendship with Obi-Wan, the one person that trusted him, that allowed him to be down this path and to love him for who he was. Obi-Wan was never blind to Padme. He was never blind to Anakin's will to see his mother. He allowed him to. He understood that that's what he needed. He was his friend, his master, and very much a father figure to him. You could see what he was doing was slightly wrong, but I don't necessarily think that is his own fault. I think that is Anakin. His loneliness, he was misunderstood and alienated by the Jedi, by all the Jedi, really. The whole Jedi were completely misunderstanding who he was. Initially, oh, he's too old. He's too old. And then it got to the point of, this guy's scary. He's scary. He's got a darkness to him. He wants things. He's fearful of things. Look at what he did. Man, you could completely rewrite that. You could completely just accept who he was. Be friends with him. Allow him to grow with you. To grow as a part of the Jedi fucking order. The whole Republic could have been built around the love of each Jedi and their acceptance. Look at Ki-Adi-Mundi. He was able to have a wife, obviously because his species was low and he needed to breed, sure. But, like, he had multiple wives. I mean, inshallah, brother. But he had multiple wives. Anakin couldn't even have one. There's no exceptions to be made because the Jedi were dogmatic. They were absolutely dogmatic. They could not see their wrong. I'm not going to bring up that Dooku quote. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to bring it up at any time. Live amongst the stench, and sometimes you no longer notice its corruption. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful quote. I misquote it every fucking time, every time. So yeah, I think all of what the Jedi was doing to Anakin kind of greatly exaggerated this whole idea of his isolation, his alienation, and his loneliness. It's sad because it could have changed. It could have been different. But that's the beauty of a good story, is that not everything happens in the right way for the right people. But let's talk about Frodo's companionship, right? He had that physical companionship of the Fellowship. He had Samwise Gamgee. But mainly his whole success was the relationship that he had with his friends. Without his friends, he could not survive. I know I talked about it before with Samwise and all that kind of stuff, like how important he was, and I don't need to hark back on that too much, but the Fellowship in itself, everything that they did behind the scenes, Merry and Pippin destroying all of the orcs at Isengard, like, just the sheer amount of troops that they went through in order to make sure that Frodo and Samwise were safe was incredible. Without them, they could not have done anything. His friendship, their acceptance of his need to be alone was a massive part of his success as well. They understood Frodo. They understood what he needed and the journey that he had to take and the sacrifice that he was making. But let's talk about sacrifice. Let's talk about the final point, redemption and legacy. So, Anakin's redemption was through his son. Basically, Anakin had the whole redemption through love. Love incarnate, love for his son, love for Padme, everything. It inevitably turned him and made him into Anakin again. He went from Anakin to Vader to Anakin in a beautiful turn of events. Even the darkest soul in the galaxy could turn to the light. It was a beautiful sign of love and support that no one could have done without their companion like Luke. So Luke, massive shout out, brother, shout out. But let's talk about Frodo's, because I think Frodo's is just a little bit more important. Anakin's was kind of like, his legacy was tarnished completely by the fact that, you know, he kind of killed fucking so many people, and he was a part of the really, really bad empire that was like basically enslaving people. Yeah, kind of bad, a little bit of a bad legacy. I kind of see why they weren't really happy that he would join. But yeah, let's talk about Frodo. Frodo's departure. It's a little bit different from his redemption because his departure was the most impactful part of his end. He couldn't heal from both his physical, obviously, the scarring that basically tied him to the Shadow Realm, or the Wraith Realm. He couldn't heal from that physical aspect, and especially not the emotional side of it. The emotional scarring on Frodo was far more important than anything physically. I mean, I think Tolkien perfectly described in that book about what it was like, without even saying anything, just the physicality of it. He perfectly described what it was like as a war veteran, someone who had been to war, like himself, coming back and living and attempting to live the same life, but just nothing's the same. It's quieter. It's just nobody knows what you've gone through, the troubles and the torment and the mental and emotional scarring that you've been through in order to get to this point and to ensure their safety. It's sad. It's really, really sad, but I think it was captured so beautifully. So in his departure to the Undying Lands, it was a beautiful symbol of peace. Frodo coming to peace, the land coming to peace, all of their warriors of divine strength, which Frodo did have that divine strength, departing to a land of everlasting life and peace. I think it's beautiful, but it makes a very important statement. The cost, it talks about the cost of heroism and the enduring impact of trauma. Guys, I'm going to call it on that one. I really, really liked this episode. I was so keen to do this one. I hope you liked this location. I love it here. It's kind of like my favorite. Has some beautiful birds in the background, so I hope you guys enjoyed that one. I will catch you next week if you're watching Blades and Beskar. Next week, 7 p.m. AEDT, and I'm also going to be doing my Bloromanda lore on Saturday. That's the main video of the channel. That is Saturday, 7 p.m. AEDT, where we're going to talk about season 3 of... Oh, sorry, not season 3. I literally, like, the amount of times I was filming the reaction, I just did a reaction on video on Skeleton Crew episode 3, and the amount of times I had to redo it because I kept on saying, I just watched season 3. What the fuck am I on about? Brother, I'm dumb. I am dumb. But I love you all. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for watching. I can't wait to see you guys in the next one. Let me know what you think down below, if there's any topics that you want to talk about. I think I've got the next 5 weeks kind of booked out, but I'm more than happy to work around that. I really want to work around you guys, kind of do some videos for you and enjoy it. So from me and the Cicada, bye. 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 Have a good one, guys. Love you all. I'll catch you in the next one.